This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Speakers, publishers, consultants, coaches, and info marketers unite. The Speaking of Wealth Show is your roadmap to success and significance. Learn the latest tools, technologies, and tactics to get more bookings, sell more products, and attract more clients. If you're looking to increase your direct response sales, create a big-time personal brand, and become the go-to guru, the Speaking of Wealth Show is for you. Here's your host, Jason Hartman.
It is my pleasure to welcome Chandler Bolt to the show. He is the founder of Self-Publishing School. And you know, if you've ever had that dream, as many have, to publish a book, whether it be a nonfiction book, a business book, or the great American novel, this is the show for you. I did my first book back in 1999, and I hate to admit, it is on the New York Times worst seller list. So I thought you'd appreciate that. And if you don't want that to happen to you, learn how to market books and publish them so they are marketable, because, we all have a message inside us. We all have something we want to get out to the world. And this is a great way to do it. The book nowadays is almost like a business card. It's just a great tool to really just increase your credibility, your influence, and your clout out there in the marketplace. So Chandler, welcome. How you doing?
Jason, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me here. And I love that you said that, because I agree that a book is the new business card. Yep. You'll hand someone a business card and they'll probably throw it away within 24 hours. You hand them a book, and every time they see it, they think of you. And when they need what you do, or when a friend needs what you do, they pass the book along as your business card to someone else who ends up doing business with you.
Yeah, no, it's a very handy tool for sure. But what are the things that really stop people from doing a book? I think the first one is just writing the darn thing, right? It's a big project. First off, Chandler, maybe address this. There are so many books being published nowadays. It's just a very busy marketplace with just a lot of noise. What's the right length for a book, or the right sort of positioning for a book? Maybe that first, and then we'll go into getting it written.
Yeah. So, there's two or three things I would speak to that answer those questions and say, first and foremost, can you be as specific as possible? And for most people have probably heard the saying, the riches are in the niches. I think when people think about a book, they want to write this broad book. It's like how to live an amazing life and be your best ever. And it's just like, it's a boring, generic, broad book that no one cares about. Right. And so instead, what I recommend is solve a very specific problem for the target audience that's most likely to, pay to do business with you. And if you're already doing sales conversations, or what those problems are. Right. And so write to that. And that'll help you write a better book, and it'll help you write a book that actually grows your business. So I think start with being specific. And then to answer your question on length, for nonfiction, typically somewhere between 15 to 70,000 words, which that's a very broad
That's a lot range. That's a big gap, right? Yeah.
So the more lead generation, like solve a specific problem you're going, the lower end of that spectrum, the more, kind of like drop the mic on a topic. You'll be the more kind of the higher end. I'll tell you, my best selling book of all time is called Published: The Proven Path from Blank Page to Published Author. This one looks funny because I cut the corner off, and I've been working on the second edition of this book comes out December 14th.
Right. But how many words is that, for example?
Exactly. That's what I was just about to say. So 50,000 words in the original version. When I wrote the second edition, it ballooned up to 83,000, but then in editing, it's right at 63,000. I would honestly like it to be a little bit shorter so that it's easier to read, but I think that's a pretty good length.
Okay, great. So how many pages does that translate into? Now that looks like a 6x9 trade paperback, right?
Yes. Okay. Yes, you nailed it.
How many pages are 50? That's the 50,000 word version. How many pages do you get out of that?
This is 202 pages. I think the new version is like 236.
Yeah.
It's a lot of images. It's ADHD friendly. It's bigger text. Like this is, pretty loosely formatted. It's not like we don't have to get in the details, but just wide margins, small text, like all those things that some people do to shrink a lot of words into a short book. And so it's pretty loosely formatted, and it's 236 pages on the new version.
Give us some examples of riches are in the niches. It's good that you say that, but I think some people listening are probably still thinking, well, with my topic, right? What do I do? So let's take the topic, for example, of real estate investing or investing in general. Now that would probably be too broad, investing, right? So you niche it down.
I'll give you a very specific example. So this is one of our students, Hayden Crabtree, in real estate. He wrote a book called Skip the Flip. And it's about real estate investing, but more specifically, it's about why you should skip the flip and why you shouldn't start flipping houses. So it's a little bit contrarian. It's a little bit, you're countering the common advice in the marketplace, and it's very specific. And so that worked for him. Another example for me, my first book is called The Productive Person, but it was productivity for entrepreneurs who can control their own schedule and struggle with work-life balance. Very specific, right? And in a category that's often broad of, productivity books. And so find that specific problem. I call this the 4 Ps of a high converting offer. So you've got person, pain, promise, and price. And so who's the person that you can solve this problem for? And this is the ideal reader is what we call it. What's the pain that they have that they know that they have, right? And then what's the promise that you can make? So the compelling promise that you can make with your book. And then obviously in the book context, the price is pretty straightforward. But if you're selling other stuff, the price is a little bit more variable and dependent on the value that you're providing with your product or service.
Okay, so person, pain, promise, and price. Tell us about the price component, because a lot of people listening, maybe they have courses that they sell or some other product. Give us a little insight into what you're talking about there with price.
Yeah. So if we're talking price on a book, you have kind of your common windows, which is Kindle will be $2.99 to $9.99. Your print book will probably be somewhere between $13 to $20. Your audiobook will be $15 to $25. If we're talking business wise or course wise or product service, whatever off of the book, my biggest recommendation and piece of advice there would be price based on value received, not based on hours spent. And so this is the big thing that really trips people up, is myself included, so I'll use this example, which always lands pretty well, is in high school, I ran a landscaping, lawn care, and pressure washing business. And the first time I got asked, okay, how much do you charge to pressure wash my house? I was like, oh, shoot, I didn't think about that. So it was, all right, I make $7.25 an hour. I'll charge them maybe $10 an hour. It'll take me 9 hours. So maybe $90. But then I remembered that the advice my dad taught me, which is, okay, never price based on hours, price on value. So then you start thinking, okay, if this person had to pressure wash the house themselves, it'd be $50 to rent the pressure washer, $100 to rent the ladder. It'd probably take them 2 full days. So at $20 an hour, 10-hour days, that's $400 worth of their time, right? What would they pay to get their weekend back? That's probably worth $100, right? So you keep going. It's like, okay, now it's going to cost them about $650 in cost and their time to pressure wash their house. If I pressure wash this house for $300, they're thinking, wow, that's a great price. Right. In contrast to $90, if I would charge by the hour, that's a big difference, but it's still a big value to the customer.
Yeah. So you're pricing based on the value to them rather than the value to you that you're giving, right? Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. All right, good. There are so many amazing stories in the self-publishing world, but there are a lot of stories that you don't hear about that just go nowhere, right? Is your course and system and the things you offer specifically geared toward self-publishing only, or do you ever recommend people use a traditional publisher, or is that sort of just going by the wayside, the traditional publishers?
I think in a lot of cases, it's going by the wayside. It still has its place when it makes sense. So I'd say for 99.9% of people, it makes more sense to self-publish. You're going to have more control over your book. You're going to make more money on your book, and you can really use it to grow a business like you want to. The only time that it doesn't make sense is if you have a massive audience and you can get a big advance. That's really the only time that sometimes it makes sense to consider traditional publishing. So if you can get $50,000, $100,000 plus on an advance, potentially, now you're going to have to sell the book. This seems like common knowledge, but it's not. Your publisher is not going to market your book. And so just either route you take, you're going to have to market the book, but 99.9% of the time, it makes more sense to self-publish.
Yeah. Unless you're already famous, you're probably not getting an advance.
Exactly.
And the thing you didn't mention is with that traditional publisher, you got to wait about a year and a half before your book's going to see the light of day, right?
Yes. Yeah. It'll take a minimum of 2 years. They will take the lion's share of the royalties, right. And you don't own your IP, and you can't control what you do with the book. And so there's a lot of things that I teach and that we do to strategically use the book to grow the business. And a lot of those things you just can't do if you're with a traditional publisher.
Right. Well, tell us about some of those things, and then let's go back to that first question about how to get the book written. Okay. Because I really want to make sure we cover that. But what are some of these strategic things you do, turning the book into lead gen, how to grow business, et cetera?
Yeah. So I really look at how do you use the book to strategically get more leads, more sales, more referrals. And so really those three buckets. And so more leads, these are people who hear about me because of my book, who wouldn't otherwise know about me. So you think about people who wouldn't have heard of ClickFunnels without Russell Brunson writing those books, right? Or there's so many examples of that. Then more sales. So how do you use the book to increase the conversion rate of all the points of your funnel? By giving away a book, by bringing in leads from the books, that sort of thing, and then more referrals. And so that's where I look at whether, especially with brick and mortar businesses, but with online businesses as well, how do I use the book to get more referrals? And so there's two things I do here. Number one is I recommend that you put 2 books in the hands of every customer, and you say, here's one for you, and here's one for a friend who needs help with XYZ. So in my case, here's one for you and one for a friend who needs help writing and publishing a book, right? So you're turning customers into referrers. And then another thing we do is we just have a link on the self-publishing school site for our customers. It's a X-link/friend. And we say, hey, anytime you have a friend that asks about writing a book or wants to write a book, just send them there. We'll ship them a free copy of my book. No shipping, no handling, anything. So we're making it easier for our customers to refer. So those are the 3 buckets I look at. In the second edition, so the new book, there's a whole chapter. It's chapter 25 dedicated to how you use a book to grow your business. But one other thing, and I realize some people might be listening to this or maybe watching this, but in the very beginning of the book, I give away audio and video for free. These are 2 things that convert unbelievably well. So I'll give away the audiobook for free. And then I give away a video. And in this case, it's a webinar training. And that leads folks they get it's like a synopsis of the book, but then it also leads them to book a call with my team and sign up for self-publishing school. So those are some small, and there's a bunch of little small things like that I really look at. How do we turn readers into subscribers and ultimately into paying customers?
Right. The book should be viewed as a launch pad.
Yes.
Right. For other business. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. Good stuff. Writing the book. Maybe we should have taken this in order chronologically, but we didn't. Anyway, it's okay. So what is the best way to write a book? I mean, and it probably depends if it's fiction or nonfiction, I'm guessing. Do you start with an outline? Do you start at the end? I've heard all sorts of writing techniques. What is your opinion?
Yeah. So I have a process. I call it the more writing method, and more is an acronym. So it's first starts with the M is for mind map. And so you mind map everything you can think of around this topic.
I love mind mapping. A great tool.
It's so helpful. So helpful. And so if you're listening to this, watching this, whatever, as soon as this interview is over, take 15 minutes, grab a blank sheet of paper, put your book topic in the middle of the page, and I want you to put a timer for 15 minutes and write out everything that you can think of on this topic. You're going to be amazed at how much information you have on this topic. So starts with a mind map. Then the O stands for outline. So you use your mind map and turn that into an outline for the book as a whole. All right. And then R stands for rough draft. E stands for editing. So that's the more writing method: mind map, outline, rough draft, editing. And for the rough draft piece, you're going to start with chapter number 1. You'll spend 10 minutes mind mapping everything you can think of on that chapter, 10 minutes turning that mind map into an outline. and then 45 minutes to an hour and a half writing the chapter. And you'll repeat that process chapter by chapter by chapter. Now, some people speak better than they write. You can do that. Mind map outlines, speak the chapter, and then repeat that process. And that's how you get the rough draft done as quickly as possible, which is just most important, because once you get the rough draft done, you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you start to believe that it's possible. And so it goes from this thing that, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, to holy cow, this is actually happening. Like, I'm making progress.
Do you have a preference as to the style of books? Do you like a lot of chapters and short chapters, or fewer large chapters, or does it matter?
Yeah, I think the best style of book is the book that gets read and gets finished. And so knowing, for your audience, what does that look like? For me, my personal style is, I'm a C-level English student and a college dropout with ADHD. So for me, it's like, I want to make things simple, engaging, short chapters, short paragraphs to reduce the friction to keep people reading. And so that's my preference. But the thing I recommend for every single person here is, when you're writing your book, because you're kind of talking about like, what voice do I write in, or style, which is just, people always struggle with this, especially if it's your first book. I would say, think of one person that you know, so that you actually know in your life, and write the book to that one specific person. So this isn't like a lot of people say, oh, write to an avatar. This isn't an avatar. This is an actual person that you know. And then write it as if you're writing a letter. So let's say, Jason, you were my ideal reader. Then I could even go as far as to say, dear Jason, at the beginning of every chapter. Uh-huh. And then I write that. And if I'm thinking, hey, should I tell this story or not? Should I be funny or should I be serious? Every time I'm just asking, well, okay, what would Jason want? Like, right. How would I say this to Jason?
Yeah. Is that person going to know this already, or do I need to explain it to that person? Right. So it really gives you a concrete idea of that context. That's good. Do you recommend actual writing? Do you recommend a certain word processing program? A lot of people use Scrivener, right? And that's really popular. Or do you recommend that people record or use dictation software, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's funny. This is one of the, I would have never thought about this, but this is one of the most popular posts on our blog. And we have like this whole assessment that helps people figure it out. But really, it's the best writing software is the software that you already use, where you can make the fastest progress. So the last thing I want is people trying to figure out some new tool and and spending hours doing that instead of actually writing the book. And so for my personal preference is Google Docs. I think it's really great, and it's good, especially good for collaboration, because I'll have my editors hop into the doc and then I'm chasing them through the doc. So I don't have to wait to get it back. And so I like Google Docs, but as far as transcription, I like rev.com, or the Rev app. You can speak, get it transcribed by an actual human, which, if you got a Southern accent like me, or anything else where Siri doesn't understand you, that can be helpful to have an actual human transcribe it, so that then you're working from something that's good versus just jumbled text that was kind of roughly. And
you're saying Rev because Rev offers machine transcription, and then you can pay extra for human, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Good stuff. What else would you like people to know, Chandler?
As it relates to starting, so many people, their excuse is, I don't have time, or the timing isn't right. And people think there's going to be this magical time where they have no job, no business, no kids, no responsibilities, and that's when they're going to write their book. You're going to have to get started before you're ready. And so I'd encourage folks, if you think this is something that you want to do, like you got to start sooner than later. I just went through this with my book, where I knew I needed to do the second edition of this book for a long time. And I just kept pushing it. And finally I said, all right, I've got to start. And I'm going to lead from the front and show people that this is possible. And so going from starting point to published, I think in about 100 days is what I'll end up doing. And I'm on the tail end of that process, but I had to start, put it on the calendar, prioritize it, and do what we call a 30-day. It's the 30-day draft challenge, the 30-day rough draft challenge. And it is possible to get a draft written as little as 30 days if you do it. Or if you're intentional about it and you map it out and that sort of thing.
Good stuff. Chandler, thanks for joining us today.
Jason, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.